Hey guys, welcome to the channel. I'm excited today because I'm gonna show you exactly how to create a photorealistic little clip with the help of AI, and I'm gonna show you the full workflow on how to achieve that. So make sure to stay until the very end. So let's start with the first step. So the first step is to model things in a 3D software, right? And the reason I'm also modeling here, and in this case, I'm utilizing ArchiCAD. And a lot of the times, I do want to empower every architect or designer that you can still generate amazing results even though you are generating models in BIM for architecture visualization. I think a lot of people get caught that they actually need to be using Blender or 3ds Max or Rhino or SketchUp, and the BIM tools are not really used for architectural visualization. And even though with the other tools it's easier and have more of these other tools that you could potentially have more flexibility to model, I think now with the post-production tools that we have in place, whether it's real-time renderings, Photoshop, generative fill, and AI, you don't really need those other tools anymore. You can still get amazing results out of a BIM software. So that's why I'm excited to show you this one, because this one here is made in ArchiCAD and you can potentially do exactly the same in Revit. But this is the model that I have, and if you see it carefully, all these components that I have are done in ArchiCAD, but all the assets are really done on a real-time engine library. And you can, again, whether you use DeFi or Enscape or anything like that, or Twinmotion, you can come out with about the same results. So here, this one here, as you can see, is the rendering out of Enscape, right? This is already with all the assets. All the assets were really from Enscape, except for the cabinets, which those are the ones from ArchiCAD. So this is kind of what I started with, as far as once I start putting everything in place. I use a lot of the library tool here, and pretty much I got all the assets from the library tool, the asset library. So once I started doing that, then I came here, and I play with the image here a little bit. I'm using a HDRI. You can see here HDR, and then you always want to make sure that whenever you're gonna do a final rendering, you turn on the material ID and the depth channel and all those, because those are going to be very important to use during the post-production. And then you could do that. Skybox, have it set to this. Again, this is not really a tutorial on Enscape, but I just want to show you the workflow. So the first step is just generate a detailed 3D model in BIM, right, or in any other particular 3D model tool. Then the next step would be to actually render in your rendering of your choice, really. I'm using Enscape, but you can really render this thing in DeFi, Twinmotion, V-Ray, whatever you want to do it, right? And set up the environment, set up all these things. Once you have these in place, you can still, it looks good, but it doesn't have still that photorealism that you're like, oh my gosh, it doesn't look like a picture. So something that helps here, the next step is I came to Photoshop, right? And then is when I start playing with, this is very important, right? Out of the I would say the 4 more important tools that you need in Photoshop, I don't do anything complicated in Photoshop. The only thing I really do is clipping masks. I use the generative fill a lot, and then I just do the filter. I add a few filters as far as the brightness and contrast, and then at the end of the day I just do a camera raw to just get the little contrasts right. So nothing, I don't do anything particularly super difficult in 3ds Max, Photoshop. So as you can see, so before I do this, so this is kind of showing you a little bit the process of what I did, but I start with that image that I got from Enscape, right? Then after that, I overlay already an asset, already another image. Now, when I'm in Enscape here, what I did, sometimes it works well, sometimes it doesn't work that well. But here, whenever I'm in Enscape, I normally will, Enscape has and I think most of the most of the tools now have this, but I use the AI enhancer, which it really just adds a little bit more sharpness to it and a little bit more detail. But that's the first image. The second image, and a useful tool that I use, it's called Krea AI, and again, you can use Magnifique, and there's other AI enhancers. You can use Topaz AI, Photo AI. So what it does, it just adds this sharpness to the image, and a lot of times it really improves the reflection of the metals, right? Like if you see here, like it really improves that, right? Like it does, sometimes it does screw things up a little bit, as you can see here, but it adds a lot more detail and grunginess to the materials, to a point where like for work well, some other times I don't like it too much, but I still use it as a mask to bring inside Photoshop, right? And from this mask, as you can see, then I start kind of using a mask, and I really start kind of, and along with the material ID, I start selecting things here, right? So I will say, for instance, if I didn't really like the sharpness of, you know, the material that it was giving me here, I will select that, and then in the mask here, I will delete that part, right? Or I will at least erase it to a certain percentage to where I think it's needed. And that way I'm in that 50%, you know, so I can control which mask I want to keep and how much sharpness do I want to keep out of the materials. So that's a great tip you want to use. So I think the three main components is like getting the base image, then enhance it with an AI tool or just an enhancer, right, to kind of maybe bring more detail into the sharpness of the materials and the reflections. Then export your material ID, and with that really start controlling the masks and what you want to show and what you don't want to show. And from there, really, it's just starting to add little materials here with the material, with, you know, just masks, right? For instance, here I start kind of getting that, and again, it's just kind of going back to the material ID, selecting that little part that was wrong, and then just adjusting that little area there, right? So once you have that, I start adjusting that because the enhancer on Krea kind of messed up that thing. So I had to kind of go back again to the material editor, select the woman there, copy paste, and put it here on top. And as you can see, I have not been naming these things where I should, you know, be naming them. So that will be good practice. Another good practice that I don't know, actually it's not that one. It's I forgot which one was it, but it's a good practice to start naming things. You see, like that was one that I tried to do with the generative fill, but that's a good example. Like for instance, if you really want to have like a more photorealistic image or something, what I would do, and I think I want to show you that in, oh, I thought I did a bowl. Yeah, so you see that bowl here? I did that with the generative fill. So I didn't even, like, I just didn't like the way that this was sculpted. If you think things through, look at the Enscape file here. It's supposed to be a sculpture. It's supposed to be like a little ceramic of a cactus, right? So if you actually come here and see this carefully, it doesn't look too bad. It actually looks good, right? Like you have like a nice reflection. I see you have a little plants. Hopefully, luckily they didn't see that, but I should rotate that a little bit. But it's nice. But the moment you do that and put it like that, somehow it starts losing the form, and once you actually render that, it just doesn't look right at all. So the only thing I did is I literally just selected that area and I just used generative fill and generate. And you know, you can potentially add a prompt to kind of ask what do you want it to generate. In this case, I just say generative fill. I didn't put a prompt because I wanted to first let the AI try to fix it and see how it was gonna fix it, and they gave me 3 options, which some of them are fine. I like this one here, and I was like, you know what, this is good enough as far as the reflections and the material, and I was like, I'm just gonna keep it like that. But that's some little adjustments you can use with a generative fill. If for whatever reason a material or something's not looking good and you just don't want to have to be spending the time doing a lot of those things, then you can kind of do that. Sometimes it doesn't work that well, right? But it's good to start testing things. So because I changed the material here, I like kind of make that a little bit more kind of blend with the wall. I was kind of looking for some adjustments here that I could do. You see that? Like that's something the generate field will do that sometimes you don't want, and you're like, okay, time to delete that one. And then you have a mask here for the tag. I didn't use it at the end. Then as I was mentioning before, then I did a few filters, which I like to normally do the brightness and contrast. Once I had this one in place, I thought it was a little burnt, but I was like, you know what, it's fine. Then I created a mask. I created like I exported. This is like export pretty much. So I pretty much just did this export and save it as a PNG, and then I brought it back in, right? And with that one here, I kind of did a camera raw, which you guys don't know. Camera raw is coming here and using the camera raw filter. The thing I like about this is it does give you controls with the whites, with the blacks, with you can adjust levels here. You can add a vignette. So I really like this because you can control a lot. You don't have to control all the adjustments individually, but it's kind of like having everything in one here where you can really control things, right? So I can bring the saturation of the greens a little low if I really needed to. So it's a little more detailed, and I really like that. So yeah, at the end of the day, I just use a camera raw, and then I did it. So now it looks a lot more photorealistic than the first image. So if you compare that to, I'm just gonna show you the first image here. Give me a second here. The mask one. That's not even mask one. Is this one? Yeah. So if you compare this one with this one here, you can tell like there's little details, like the towels, for instance, right? The grunginess of the material here, the sharpness of the material here, the colors, right? There's more contrast here. The leaves have a lot more reflection on one side. This looks a lot better here. The reflections of the floors looks more detailed. The colors just look better, whereas here it just looks a little sort of opaque for whatever reason. Now, let me make sure I'm showing you. But again, my opinion, this looks a lot better. And then, okay, so now we have got to the workflow where now you have a photorealistic image. Once you have a photorealistic image, now you can bring that to Clink or Sora to create a photorealistic animation out of that, right? And you can kind of create as many animations as you can, but I like to kind of create just clips because eventually you can compile those later. So for instance, if you are doing an animation of a whole main residence, what you can do is like, I will have like 6 renderings, right? I will have 6 photorealistic renderings of like bathroom, living room, kitchen, exterior, and all that. And you can create like AI animations with that are great. The great thing about that is, for instance, if you were in Unreal Engine or DeFi and all that, you can create those animations. But the thing is, like, you're still with the quality of the animations. Meaning, like, if I create an animation here on Enscape, right, it's great, but it will keep this quality, which is not bad, but I will have to put a lot more effort to really get every single detail right, especially when the camera moves and everything. Whereas with post-production and then the AI animation, it can keep that photorealism while keeping the same quality. The only pro on this is like if you spend the time and create that like photorealism in the image, which again takes a lot of experience, a lot more time, you could potentially get more customized camera movements and camera depth. So I think at the end you really want to do a mixture of both, where there's going to be times where you really want to create like a camera effect, right? In that case, then it's better if you work in that specific area in the real-time engine to animate that. But in other cases where you're just doing like a little like movement of the camera towards a specific thing, then it's better to use AI, just because it will keep that photorealistic image while just you don't having to spend that extra time really on that. So it will save you a lot of time if you kind of mix both, if that makes sense. But that last effort that I was going to show you was here. So what I did, I created right, so a way you can really add a prompt that it's easy is by going to ChatGPT or DeepSeek. You upload the image to Zora, or to DeepSeek or ChatGPT, you pretty much give ChatGPT a persona saying like, hey, by the way, I want you to act as a filmmaker that is making a short cinematic film on this specific building, and I want you to emphasize the architecture or the design or the interior design of the building. And then you upload the image, click enter, and it will give you a nice prompt. Out of that prompt, you can edit it however you want to, but now you have a very nice prompt, right? What I did after that is like I uploaded the prompt here, and once I uploaded the prompt here, you upload the image, the photorealistic image, and then in my case I give it a professional mode at 10 seconds because I want a 10-second clip. Again, you can choose at the beginning, maybe you don't want to use that many points and you just want to test it. You want to maybe use the standard mode and then just use the 5 seconds with 2 general counts. I would recommend that, because in that way you're still getting 2 samples or 3 or 4 samples, but then you're still just using the standard mode with 5 seconds, which doesn't spend that much credits on your account. And then here you can give it a negative prompt if you want to, as far as like blur or pixelation or things like that. So once I created that, like, these is kind of the results I got. Look at this. You see how awesome it is? Like, for me to be able to do this, I would have been able to do that in Unreal or things like that. But the thing you have to realize is, for you to keep the quality of the materials with the lighting and all these things, would have taken me a lot more time to achieve than, because these will have to come directly from Unreal Engine. Like, I would have not been able to do any post-production in Photoshop or anything like that. So everything has to be done inside the engine, to where it will take a lot more time. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, but I'm saying you should be strategic to when you do it. Meaning, like, if there's something, for instance, I'm gonna give you the how do you call the thumbnail, the what is it called, the rule of thumb. So think about this. Whenever you're doing like slow camera movements, right, that are, you're just, it's kind of like taking a picture, but you're just zooming in and zooming out or zooming like to the sides, then in my opinion it's much better to use AI, because you're not overspending that time. You're saving that time for other things. Now, if you are trying to do like a cinematic, like close-up, like where you're actually going to be using some depth of field and there's going to be some blurriness on one material, and then you want it to change to a different object, and then you want it to kind of zoom in and zoom out, so there's a lot more custom things that you're doing with the camera, then it's worth putting the time and effort on those in that specific aspect of the camera for it to actually look that great. So at the end of the day, when you're creating a film and you kind of mix both, you kind of mix those little custom camera movements and cinematic animations in DFI and Unreal, and then you mix it with the AI thing that you actually did the post-production, and they're actually looking probably more photorealistic than the actual animation, then I think you get a great result, as long as, again, you're putting the work on the other ones to kind of make it look as photorealistic as that. But the good thing is, like, now you don't have to be focusing on the whole room, but if that camera just zooms in and out of maybe these here, of these specific sink, maybe that's where you start kind of, also you have to understand, I just realized, so for instance, if you come here, I just realized, so for instance, at times it will mess things up. Like these ones here, you have to start probably adjusting the camera, because the AI, as you see, is not reading the sync well here. You see, it's reading like the sync is over there, which it's not, right? It's the sync of the of the faucet, and it's kind of, but it's because whenever I created this image, so that's something you need to go back and readjust. But is that whenever I create this image and this movement like that, it's in a 2-point perspective. So chances are, like, the AI is not really able to distinguish these that great, like the distance here, even though it's right. So whenever it creates that image like that, it thinks that the basin it's farther away than it actually is. So a way to fix that is to potentially move the camera a little bit up and maybe change it to perspective, just so you give the AI enough information to know more, to have better idea of where the sink is. And this is for my own reference, that I just realized that right now. But that's a way to fix it, right? Like you will have to give it like a little different angle. But that's another thing to kind of look out for. Like for instance, whenever you create your first rendering, right, this one here, then you probably, I mean, if you're already thinking of doing an animation, give the rendering, the first one, this first pass, before you give it the post-production to the animation, right? And see if it's reading well, right? If it's not reading well, chances are, if you really want an AI animation, you really want to adjust the camera just a little bit, just so it reads the angle right. Or maybe even change it from two-point perspective to perspective, so it starts reading the locations right. Because there's gonna be times like this where everything is perfect except for the location of the sink. Even this one is fine, but then this one here, as you can see, is screwed. Now, don't get me wrong, like if you keep doing this and you maybe specify that that scene is under the sink, it might fix it. So it's something that you wanna test, but this is a great thing that it will save you a lot of time of not having to, you know, like get this photorealistic renderings into animations without, because I understand, like sometimes I'm frustrated because in the real-time engines, for me it's very hard to achieve these results, right? Now with practice you could, but I'm saying it does take a lot more time. So hopefully you learn a little bit. Hopefully this was a good tip for you, and if you like the video, give me a thumbs up, let me know your process, and yeah, see you.